Hello, hello. Welcome to the Daily Faded. I'm Hetz. This is where we get faded, talk about the news and politics of the day and some other stuff sometimes. The most exciting part of the show is watching me smoke weed. Only a stoner would think that other people would want to watch them smoke weed. Sorry. This is our 69th edition of the Daily Faded. Today is July 2nd, 2020, and the Good Jobs Report is fake news. We're going to get to that a little bit later, hopefully. I haven't been getting through all of my material at any of my shows, but I'm not going to go faster because I want to go at my own pace. You know what I'm saying? It's not supposed to be like stressful news. You know, this is supposed to be relaxed, mellow. So from a relaxed and mellow place, as I was saying, the coronavirus report, we are almost at 11 million confirmed cases worldwide. We're at 10.9 million, with 523,131 deaths reported for COVID-19 around the world. In the United States, we are at 2,832,054 confirmed cases, with 52,101 in the last day. And I've even seen other numbers since I took this down that we may have gotten as high as 53%. So the number is continuing to climb. We've had 131,401 deaths, with 603 of them happening today. And in California, we're now up to 244,442 confirmed cases of coronavirus, 6,204 deaths in the state of California, which we're going to talk about in a minute. I thought this was interesting. In Nebraska, state leaders suggested that holiday cookout hosts keep guest lists to make contact tracing easier if there's an outbreak. I thought that's not really a good policy suggestion, right? Like, well, keep a list of everyone who's there, put down their phone numbers and addresses preferably, and perhaps their contacts. How about don't have any kind of gathering whatsoever because you could kill your grandmother? Governor Abbott in Texas reversed his position on masks and ordered all Texans to wear masks. There's a lot of other coronavirus news, a lot of other details from different states, and we're going to mention a few of those details here in this article from the LA Times that I believe posted late in the day today. As coronavirus cases soar, Trump continues cheerleading for reopening the economy. While celebrating better than expected economic numbers at the White House on Thursday, 4.8 million jobs created in June, although that only went through June 26th and does not take into account the last couple of days of June when things started closing up again. I will get back to what I was talking about. While celebrating better than expected economic numbers at the White House on Thursday, President Trump conceded that the coronavirus outbreak wasn't over, but insisted, quote, "We're putting out the fires." It's more like a blaze raging out of control. That's from the writer whose name I don't have in front of me. The president appears to be in denial as the country racks up record numbers of confirmed cases every day, with 50,000 reported Wednesday. Although Trump has continued to blame the rising caseload on increased testing, a larger percentage of tests are coming back positive than before, a clear sign that more people are growing sick. Florida. Sorry. I always have to flip off helicopters that fly over my house, especially low, loud ones like that. Make poor Ludwig bark. A larger percentage of tests are coming back positive than before, a clear sign that more people are growing sick. So this is one of the things that's really alarming, is when you look at the numbers, and we're going to go over a few here, for what percentage of people tested are testing positive. Those numbers are going up. And with the exception of the very beginning of the pandemic, where they were only testing people who were really fucking sick, and it was like 42% of the people they tested were positive. But then it went down a cliff when they started testing more people. But even it was a slightly slower decline because they were still mostly testing people who were already obviously sick. But once it flattened out, in California, it flattened out at like, I don't know, 3 or 4%. And now in the last week in California, it's up to 6.7%. But that's nothing compared to what I'm about to talk about here. Florida reported more than 10,000 new cases Thursday, with nearly 17% of tests coming back positive. Arizona had more than 3,300 new cases, with 25% being positive. That's a huge number. The latest daily figures from Texas showed 8,076 new cases. Nearly 14% of tests in recent days have found an infection. More tests are coming back from positive in California as well, luckily only at a 6.7% right now. The state is seeing a surge in new cases after restrictions were loosened on restaurants and public gatherings, which was done too early, even in California. Even in California, where we had this elaborate metric system that Gavin Newsom came out and talked about several days in a row in his press conference, we reopened too quickly. And I think the bigger thing is that people got over it too quickly psychologically. People decided, oh, this isn't that bad. I can go to that barbecue. Or, oh, this isn't so bad. Bars are opening. I'll go to the bar. People aren't afraid enough of COVID-19. They need to be more afraid of COVID-19. The nationwide death toll, which stands at over 128, over 130 actually, has not yet accelerated. Fatalities typically lag a few weeks behind infections. In several states, hospitals officials fear being overrun with patients needing critical care, much like what New York experienced earlier this year when it was the epicenter of the country's pandemic. But Trump on Wednesday told Fox Business that, quote, "We're going to be very good with the coronavirus," end quote, and, quote, "at some point that's going to sort of just disappear." He's still saying it's going to just disappear. I guess if you are in that Trump bubble and you think it's a hoax, you know, you have racist names for the disease, you don't need logic. You don't need science. Science, data, and facts. That's what Mark Kelly is running on for Senate in Arizona. Science, Data, and Facts, or Science, Facts, and Data, something like that. That's what he's running on. He doesn't talk about any policies. He just says, we're going to come up with policies based on science, data, and fact. Okay. What policies are you going to come up with, Mark Kelly? On Thursday, Trump described the coronavirus as more of a nuisance than a crisis, choosing to play cheerleader for a nascent economic resurgence that public health experts believe is contributing to the rising caseload. So that was just today. He had business leaders in the White House, and there was a photo of him trying to swing a baseball bat, which didn't look good. We haven't totally succeeded yet. We will see soon. We haven't killed all of the virus yet, Trump said during a White House event celebrating American businesses. Trump did not take questions on Thursday, but Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin said the administration did not regret turning its attention to getting people back to work. There's a safe way to reopen the economy, and we're going to do that carefully, he said. Only we didn't, you fucking douchebag. Dr. Eric Toner, a senior scholar with the Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security, disagreed. It's very clear that the increasing caseload is due to premature relaxing of the containment measures, he said. Some states did not wait for all the metrics. They did not wait for testing and contact tracing to be in place and open too fast. We could have reopened the economy safely, but we did not, Toner added. The escalating number of infections in the United States stands in stark contrast with the European Union, which has seen caseloads fall. At this point, it looks like the only country that's going to do worse than us. I mean, who knows? Who knows? This thing could ravage countries over and over and over again, and countries that handled it well might not handle it well the second time. Who knows? But what it looks like now is that there's only going to be one country that beats us for worst coronavirus response, and that's Brazil. And, you know, Jesus, Jair, that's how much worse than Trump Jair Bolsonaro is. Oh, God. So I have been following on Twitter the U.S. Press Freedom Tracker, and I wanted to bring it up because I don't know how much reportage we're seeing about police brutality and arrests of reporters covering the protests. So their pinned tweet from yesterday says, latest reported aggressions against the press as of 10 a.m. EDT, July 1. 484 plus total press freedom incidents, 64 plus arrests, 112 physical attacks, 67 by law enforcement, 68 tear gassings, 33 pepper sprayings, 104 rubber bullet projectiles, 67 equipment and newsroom damage, 36 other TBD. So that's a lot of different kinds of things that the press has been suffering under. And U.S. Press Freedom Tracker is trying to document each and every case so that we have a record of exactly how much abuse was hurled out towards reporters from the police and I guess the National Guard in some cases. These take place in 71 total cities and 35 states. The cities with the most reported incidents are Minneapolis, Washington, D.C., New York. Minneapolis has 74 incidents. D.C. has 33. New York has 27. Los Angeles has 20. Portland has 12. And Denver has 11. So, a lot of big cities violating the First Amendment and arresting or brutalizing journalists. So check out some of these stories. They're just sort of headlines, quick headlines. They're tweets. I should have just said they were tweets, right? Oh man. Oh god, I had a veggie burger for dinner. That woo. Anyway, getting back to the serious issues here. I always make an intentional effort to look officers in the eye. If I have, excuse me, it's a quote. I always make an intentional effort to look officers in the eye. If I have to move, I will, end quote. While filming in Louisville on May 30, Vice News journalist's camera hit with pepper ball. Another one, this one had video. Proof of Portland police targeting journalists. Here is Leslie McL being arrested for walking across the street. They removed her press badge and cash from her pockets. She is visibly vomiting from CS gas exposure. Journalist at the real Corey Elia, so I guess Corey Elia, was also arrested. Hashtag Portland protests. So that's like very serious. Another one, 2 Review Journal journalists hit with pepperball projectiles before they could show authorities their press badges on May 31st in Las Vegas. Another one, quote, I'm left wondering what I could have done to make it any more apparent that I was working press, end quote. Photojournalist Kyle Grillot, on assignment for Reuters, was shot with a projectile while covering protests in Los Angeles on May 30th. They're just out there shooting at everybody. That's all it is. They're just out there shooting at everybody. The Dover Post's Andre Lamar told officers he was a journalist at least 9 times. He was detained anyway while reporting on protests against police violence in Delaware on June 9th. Are you aware that I am a member of the press? Dallas journalist, after being hit with projectiles, identifies as press while getting zip-tied and detained covering Dallas protest on June 1st. So the First Amendment is the foundation of our democracy. Nothing else in this system works without the First Amendment. People have to be free to speak, and journalists have to be free to report. And that's got to be ironclad. And we've all got to agree on it. This doesn't work. This doesn't work. Cops tear gassing journalists, cops shooting at journalists, when they're just indiscriminately shooting at the crowd, and they're tagging journalists. And I think in some cases they are discriminating against the journalists. They have an us versus them mentality. Cops have an us versus them mentality. They see themselves as different than everybody else, as uniquely having a target on their back, and they never know who the shooter is going to be. So everyone is the enemy. So that's why they have to police us. So that's just tyranny. I mean, I've said several times that I think we're living in a tyrannical system right now. Now, getting back to the economy, it was just announced that the unemployment rate in Los Angeles County is at 21%. Nationally, they say it's like 14%, but I don't think that's really true. If 45 million people have filed for unemployment, well, I guess, but still. This was in Politico yesterday. So it has one thing here. So unemployment is probably worse than reported as states close down again. Jobless data coming Thursday will fail to capture the latest devastation. Economists. Yeah, they say. The economists. They're the one who say it. So the report today was that there were 4.8 million new jobs in June because of the reopening. So Thursday's jobs report will likely look great on paper. Millions of jobs added in June as states reopened, but those numbers are a deceiving bump with the resurgence of the virus and a fresh wave of shutdowns. The reality of the job market is likely far bleaker. More than 40% of the country now reversing or pausing its plans to reopen, the already struggling U.S. economy has begun to show signs of another shock. Real-time measurements ranging from job postings to restaurant reservations and small business operations are suggesting a renewed decline in economic activity. And the number of households expecting to lose income over the next month increased in the most recent week, according to a U.S. Census Bureau survey released on Wednesday, the first rise recorded since the agency began conducting weekly household surveys 2 months ago. So we're in a serious economic problem. The economic crisis is as big as the economic crisis is as big as the pandemic, and reading the mainstream press and watching what I do of cable news, which is not a ton, but from what I can tell, they're covering the coronavirus very closely, but they're not telling the stories of people who can't pay their rent on July 1st. They're not telling the stories of, occasionally they'll do a story about a food line at a food bank, but they should be doing those stories every night. It's in the interest of the American people to talk about how bad the situation is so that the American people can demand more of their elected representatives from a standpoint of fixing the problem. Real, true economic solutions, New Deal style economic solutions. Only more and racially equitable. But of course, the corporate media doesn't want to talk about how bad the real economy is. So it was great to see this article in Politico. And then mostly, of course, it's being whitewashed by Trump and the GOP, obviously, who just continue to lie and cherry pick data. But again, today was rent day for millions of Americans. 100 million Americans? I don't know. 75 million Americans who pay rent? I don't know. 150 million Americans? I don't know. But today was rent day. And how many people were not able to pay their rent? How many people's rent moratorium went out today? And now they owe 3 months rent. How are they supposed to pay that without a job? How are the 45 million people who have filed for unemployment? That's great that we had 4.8 million jobs created in June, but that still doesn't get us below 40 million unemployed. The new numbers are coming out as the Senate is gearing up for negotiations over another coronavirus relief package, including whether to extend the extra $600 per week in jobless benefits that are currently due to run out at the end of July. A bipartisan group of lawmakers is also hammering out the details of additional business rescue programs that would offer forgivable loans to employers who are able to maintain a percentage of their payroll, similar to the rules of the Paycheck Protection Program. Senate Majority Leader, that doesn't go far enough. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell signaled this week that Republicans are willing to move quickly on some sort of package, saying the chamber will focus on talks when it returns from its 2-week July 4th recess. Another month of positive jobs numbers. Why do they take 2 weeks off for the 4th of July? Who gets 2 weeks off for the 4th of July? What the fuck? Another month of positive jobs numbers could alleviate pressure on Republicans to continue some of the more heavily debated aspects of the program, including the $600 sweetener. Many GOP lawmakers argue that the benefit is so high that it provides a disincentive to return to work. Republicans have generally been taking a quote unquote wait and see approach to potential next round of stimulus funding, while House Democrats have already moved to extend it until January. The corporate media is not reporting on economic pain. But indie media sites are. And kind of left-wing YouTube are doing a lot of stories. They're covering anything they can on the economic hardship front. Dr. Richard Wolff was on Rising with Crystal Ball and Sagar Enjeti the other day, and he talked about how corporate debt had expanded. I think we were at $6 trillion in corporate debt at the end of last year, and I think he said that there was 3 trillion additional in corporate debt just this year, at like before the pandemic. And zombie corporations now make up 1/5 of all the corporations. That's a company whose revenues cannot afford to pay off its debt, so the company slowly devours itself. But what they do is they get more debt and they pay off old debt. And the point Richard Wolff was making is that all of them are being backstopped by the Fed now. So they can't afford, they've created a debt-based corporate capitalism that can't maintain itself. So the government has to create money and pump it into these corporations to keep them all from collapsing. So A, it's not a tenable situation, but B, it's also not free market capitalism. If the government is backstopping everybody, and when I say everyone, I mean all of the large corporations. Obviously, he's not backstopping my friend who owns 7 or 8 restaurants in Southern California. He's not backstopping the average small business, but they're not. But and it's punitive to workers and small businesses, because their rights get trampled on while the corporations get to act with malice and not suffer a penalty for it. I was happy to see a new analysis in the New York Times today as well, indicating that the state of the economy, I could have done that New York Times article, is worse than the 4.8 million new jobs in June indicate. And they even had a good headline, which was after June job gains, still a deep hole and new worries, which is absolutely true. So I have one last thing to say, which I don't mean to be controversial, but I saw someone talking on Twitter about the fact that the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, I think the Washington Post, and a lot of other major news outlets have started capitalizing the word black when referencing black people. And the argument for doing this is an obvious argument, and I think it's obviously the right thing to do. But the obvious argument is Italian American is an ethnicity and it's capitalized, and Asian American is an ethnicity and it's capitalized, and black is an ethnicity and it should be capitalized. It might be anyway. But does white get capitalized? I hope not. I don't want to be a part of whatever capital white is. So if they're capitalizing white, I hope they're not. I don't think they should, because it doesn't mean anything. I mean, it doesn't mean anything. What is it anyway, right? It's like no color. Well, there are no people who don't have a color. I mean, look, I'm mostly pink and peach, right? Pink nose, peach skin. I'm not white. So, on the other hand, I don't feel like being called a Lithuanian American or a German American either. And I also don't like Caucasian, because I think that's sounds like you're from the Caucasus region, which I'm not. So why would I be Caucasian? Anyway, just some random thoughts about my white fragility. Anyway, thank you guys so much. Have a great 4th of July weekend. Don't go to a 4th of July barbecue. Don't go to a party. Don't go see your family. It's getting dangerous out there. I think everyone watching this live stream is in California, and it's looking like we're kind of fucked right now. So please play it safe. Love you, and thank you for watching. Please hit like and subscribe. And thank you to my Patreon patrons keeping me alive. Love you guys. Good night.